I do think it comes down to fear, but I think this is going to be a little different because I always say I'm not afraid of failing. I fail every single day in my job. I fail every single day in life. And I'm like, that's how I learn. So I don't think a 9-to-5 is necessarily enough, but I don't think you need to be an entrepreneur and create a business to feel fulfilled. I think there's other ways you can do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Today we're joined by someone who embodies the full meaning of resetting without starting over. She has a traditional 9-to-5 job, but she's also built multiple creative businesses over the years. She's a successful creative designer who owns her own business. So if you have a 9-to-5 job and you're thinking of starting something on the side, this is exactly the kind of message you need. Cristina Sasso is her name. Cristina, we are very happy to have you on this platform. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate coming and joining our podcast and talking about your personal journey and also some of the businesses that you have created along with having a 9-to-5 job. So we welcome you, and I just want you to take us back a second to how life looked like for you before wearing too many different hats.
I have to go back probably a couple of decades for that, but I think it was still busy, still chaotic, but in completely different ways. I was probably working for others to make their businesses successful or working in roles that was going to push their small business forward. So it wasn't about what I was doing. I was always working for someone else and trying to make that successful. And I've always worked multiple jobs because when you start in the creative field, it's not high paying. So I worked specialized retail for 16 years, worked second jobs along the way. And so, like I said, kind of busy, but in completely different ways than I'm busy, and it's chaotic now. So that's where I was to the difference where I am now. And the roles have changed. The jobs were different. I'm in a very different job now. My degree is I have a graphic design degree. I don't have a business degree. And I'm working as a business systems analyst, which is a very different role. It's probably one of the hardest roles I've ever done just because it's not in my wheelhouse. It's very logic based. It's very dependent. Your work is dependent on what people need, their outcomes. There's metrics to be measured by. So it's I consider it a harder job or a more complex job than being able to think creatively in a different way and build something. I worked at a frame shop. I managed a frame shop. So I was helping people with their creative projects. So they would come in, I would help them design it. I would work on it. I would create the things for it, and then I would put it together. So from start to finish, you were involved in the process.
Oh, wow.
So that's very different than where you are now, where you're the cog in the wheel of the process.
Right. So besides your traditional 9-to-5 as a business systems analyst, you own a business.
Yes.
So how do you introduce yourself these days? If someone asks you, like, Cristina Sasso, who are you? How would you introduce yourself?
Depending on the situation, for this, just to give a broader scope of what it is. So I say by day, I'm a business systems analyst, but at heart, I'm a working artist. I'm a multi-passionate creative. What I'm working for is mentoring overwhelmed multitaskers to help them strategize how to get off the hamster wheel of overwhelm and frustration and step back in and reclaim their daily joy, because that's how I did it.
Wow.
So I want to know a little bit more about how you grew up as a young kid and where you got your early education and your highest education.
So I grew up locally in the 518. So I'm actually from Amsterdam, New York. Currently live there now. So I moved back after being away for like 2 years in Rochester. Still living in the same family home. Just live in an apartment below my parents now. I was constantly growing up around family. When I lived, it was a 4-family house. So I had we lived in an apartment. My aunt was next door. My other aunt was downstairs. My grandmother was downstairs. So it was very different than a lot of people live. So I was constantly around support. I was constantly, call you out on something or get you in trouble on something or help you with something.
Would you say you grew up in a rich household? Were you a rich kid?
Not monetarily. No, not at all. in many other ways, but definitely not money rich. So it was never something, I don't know that was something that I ever thought about in certain ways. I think it was different because I didn't live in a house. So when you go to your friends who had houses, but other people lived in kind of where I lived, where you're in multifamilies and things like that. And that's very common in my town. So I think you just didn't realize it until you're working to try and figure out how you're going to go to college.
Right. Wow. That's interesting. Now let's move over to building a successful business besides just having a 9 to 5, because your mentality is clearly different from the mentality of the average person who has a job and they're contented. What made you take that leap of your own business?
Creatively been building for a while. I think now that I'm in the job that I am now allows me the time, the money, be able to put effort into doing it in this way. Think that, I don't know how to say this without coming off like wrong about it, but I guess the way I think about it is this job does not define who I am. It's a part of how I can pay my rent. It's a part of how I can myself. It's insurance, those things that is important, but not what fulfills me. Like, I don't like my job and think like done everything I can possibly do today. It doesn't fulfill that creative side of me. Doesn't give me the same type of joy that being creative in a different way does. Right. So I'm like, I can't end my story by that's all I do. That's not who I am.
Mm-hmm. When was that moment when you decided, okay, the 9 to 5 job is not serving like the highest purpose or like the creative Chris that you are? Was that moment you felt like, okay, I need to do something other than 9 to 5 job so you can feel content?
I think it's a development. It's kind of timeline here. So I think when I left a job that I worked in Rochester, I managed a frame shop out there, and my friend set was out there. A lot of my roots I had built out there, and I left that job and moved back to this area, be closer to family. I left without a plan. I'm not someone who does things without some kind of plan, and I left with no job on the horizon, with what am I going to do from this point forward? It was just like I knew I couldn't be where I was anymore because it was creating more frustration and more anger and angst than it was giving satisfaction. And I was working in a creative environment. So when you're working in a creative environment, but it's not your creativity that's being served, it's a burnout. So I got to the burnout in that sense. So I had to do something different there.
You said something that's interesting. You said you were working in a creative environment, but it wasn't serving your creativity. I've never heard anyone say that. Like, is it possible to work in the field that you are passionate about, but not fulfilling your passion for that kind of field?
I think so. I think that's how I felt. I was working with art. I was working with sometimes very rare pieces, people's memories, everything. It ran the gamut of things. But going through the process of like, look at this, let me measure it, let's pick out a frame, let's pick out art, how does this make you feel? How do you feel about this? It wasn't about me. And there were some projects that I was like, this is great, I love this. And I was able to work creatively with how I work creatively because you had a client who allowed that freedom. But most of the time you're working within somebody else's creative parameters. Right. And some people who come into a frame shop, they're not creatives. They're like, we had a lot of technical, more engineer related, which is a very different mindset. Mm-hmm. So how you're approaching them to allow them to be creative is not how I would be creative in the same way. So I think the burnout of never being allowed to kind of like, this would be really cool if we did this. And like, not my choice. It's not my money that they're spending. It's not.
So it sounds like 9 to 5 job was sort of keeping on how you could express your creativity.
Yeah, it was. And like, and that's, I think it does throw people because you're like, well, you're able to do it every day. I'm like, it's not mine. So I think you just get burned out as any job, whether it's in your field of study or if it's somewhere like a real thing.
So yeah, I wanted to I know you talked about a little bit of your business and 9 to 5 job. I do wanted to know exactly sort of, you have profile you have
Bella, yep.
Luna Bella, right? And like you have Chris LLC. How did you transition from Luna Bella to Creative LLC?
Oh, that definitely is a journey, and it wasn't linear by any means. Bella started way back when in Rochester. Sitting around with a few friends. We were kind of time to date myself. We were watching Lost. And we were discussing, we were all art backgrounds, artists work, we weren't really like creating. A lot of us worked at the same frame shop, which is how we were friends. And we were talking and we're like, love to really like do, people have tried to apply for shows and like didn't. And we're like, I don't understand. Like, we're like, well, if we want something that we can do, we should just create it. And it started as a joke, like, yeah, we'll just create it. And then one of the women was like, why can't we? And we were like, well, I guess we could. And then it just kind of from there, and we like threw and kind of, it was called Second Story. And it was a juried art show run by the 5 of us. No idea what we were doing. We had people fill out applications, looked at the stuff. We're like, okay, that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people who aren't established artisans, who you just need the foot in the door kind of thing to kind of notice. Then you have to search for the space to hold it and all of these little details that you're like, oh, well, this is now a bigger thing than we thought this was going to be. It wasn't just going to be like, we're going to fund and we're going to hold this. So like, and then we held our first one and it went really well and people were really excited to be part of it, and that we created that community, and that was how it grew. So it started there, and being around people who were on the same mission as you were, trying to open a door for somebody else and kind of run along the way and serve the need to be creative. And anytime you're working in a group, there's always struggles, and there's always, I had hours and hours of sessions for our logo, and we lovingly refer to it as the butter tub logo now. It's the worst logo we ever did. And we're like, do you know how many hours we spent trying to figure this out? And it was like the ugliest thing we ever did. Yeah. That just evolved over the years. So at the start there, I was always kind of background. I think that's where kind of my doubt and imposter syndrome kind of into place, because it was outside of the scope of my, like, I hadn't done active artwork in a very long time. And so I was like the behind the scenes, like I do the setup, I do a lot of the maybe help with the marketing and do those roles. But first year I didn't sell. Right. So, and then the second year I was like, you should do something. So then that's when kind of Bella came out as the way to put something in front of me that said, this is who I am and this is the art that I have. So that's kind of that started. And it wasn't, I wouldn't necessarily consider it a business, I guess. It was, I don't even know if I had a DBA. I can't even remember if I did a DBA for it, because at least in New York State, there was, I don't know if it's still true to this day, but if you like made $600 in the year for this business, like you'd have to like claim things. So it's like, I need a tax ID. I didn't need all of these. Where some of the shows to get into, you needed to have a tax ID. You needed to have a registered business. So this was something for the people who were like testing to be able to come in and be like, is this something I want to do? I want to pursue.
Right. So it's that you started out more of as a passion. You never saw this as a business, right?
Never.
That's why money wasn't really a big part of it.
Nope.
But at some point, if you keep doing things that are very passionate for you, especially the stuff that creates value for other people, and you're not charging, you still feel the burnout. But charging a fee for your services actually brings some kind of joy. I'm saying this because I was exactly at the same position at some point where I used to do hair for my friends and I never charged. I would spend hours and hours upon hours just doing it. And I started feeling the burnout. But when I started charging, because someone had pinched me and said, you're doing such a great job that you need to start charging for your services. It was difficult for me to charge at the beginning, but once I started charging, I obviously lost a few friends who got it for free. But with time, the fact that I could make money from the same thing that gave me pleasure was it made me feel really good. Now I charge a lot more than when I first started. Like I said, I lost friends, but I gained a lot more of people that appreciate my work. So now, at what point did you take Luna Bella Designs, which was started as something that brought you pleasure of being creative, into now having, because when I hear LLC, with Chris
official.
with Chris Creative
Yeah.
LLC. That's a registered business. So can you take us from the point where you took this hobby to a business, to have a limited liability company?
Yeah. I owe it all to COVID. And kind of I lived alone, even though I had family upstairs. Like you're partnered up. You're not, apartment building where there's others. Like you're a lot of your time. And all I was doing was working. I was like, I might as well do overtime. What else do I have to do? I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. And then I was just like irritated with myself. I wasn't fulfilled. I was like, nothing felt great. It was just, you were there and you were existing. And I was like, what can I do to give some, so I don't dive into a depression, and that I can
At one, you still had your 9 to 5.
I still working, in the state 5, just in a different role than I'm in now. And it was just like, we were working remotely. Luckily, we could do that. And I'm luckily privileged enough to have been in a job that I wasn't losing my salary. I wasn't losing being able to have consistent funds to live. So I was like, you have to make something of this situation, because otherwise it's going to spiral you in a way that's not good for you. And I was like, I started with reading. So I was like, I found they were doing virtual book tours. So I did a virtual book tour. And the book was actually Professional Troublemaker. Oh, wow. Lovey Ajayi Jones, which is an amazing book. And I did 4 book stop tours. I have 4 books, because she had great guests that she was doing, and you every time. And it was for $25. Sure, I'm going to do it. And so listening to conversations about that kind of thing was there's more there. There's more you could be doing. And then I had been following this one person on the socials, and I just really connected with the message that she was saying, the way she did it. She was funny. So I ended up taking a course, and it was called 1K One Day from Nicole Walters. And if it's under a certain price point, I'm going to do it. I'm like, I want to learn about this. I want to maybe I can, something interesting to me. I liked her message, and I was like, it ended up being at a price point I could afford. Did I think this was going to be a business? No, I think it was just to kill time because I was bored and I needed something to focus on. And kind of how Chris Creative LLC came about, it was like, well, I'm halfway in. I might as well go all the way in and see what happens. Wow. And I just did it. Something
you said, you paid to take a training course to better yourself. Not many people do that. Mm-hmm. So that's very encouraging to know that, point all of us need to pay a price to get what we really need. So that course, was it what helped you structure?
Yeah, and I think even more than the information provided in the course of how to build the business, it created connection between people from all over. There was a Facebook group. There were collectives that you were put into based on how you answered a questionnaire. So to this day, I still work with one of the people I met through there. I found my current business coach by her being in the group who had taken a different iteration of it. So the connections and how it makes you look at information, and how once you have that, the biggest thing is to step into that. You have to invest in yourself if you're going to be able to do anything is my thing. And luckily I was able to have the ability to do that. But it doesn't have to be on a grand scale. It can be a free course. It can be something. Right. It's I just have to be curious enough to be willing to be works. If it doesn't, it was a great source of information.
Yeah, no, this is really good. So I just want to kind of know, you wear so many different hats and things going on in your life. How do you find balance? Did you ever feel that you were burned out? And how do you manage it?
I think the biggest thing, I could do this all by myself. Of course, I followed all the instructionals, did all that. But then I was a graphic design degree. I can create my own website. I followed the things. I cried in a corner for multiple days because I was like, this is not easy, guys. You did. I also graduated before web was a real thing. So I was like, I don't know what you thought you were going to do. You have to get to the point where you're either going to give up or you're going to reach out for help. And I reached out for help. And because I reached out for help, and the people that I reached out for help to, some are a paid coach that I work with continuously, have been working for a couple of years, who me to have the power of yet is what she tells me. It's like, you know how to do this yet, but you will.
Wow.
So, and I think that's part of the drive. It's like, we'll never take off and, money and everything, but I enjoy doing what I do in the capacity right now I'm doing it. And it's the capacity I have for it right now, but it doesn't mean that can't change. I can't figure it out. It took a long time to get from even just Chris Creative LLC. What does that mean? To what am I using it now? Like, I have a couple of DBAs that I've kind of obscure the names for, but that are actually active. So I work my art under like creative and have like my page for like that. And LinkedIn is more towards like that role where I'm like posting that, are helping people.
What habits or systems do you have in place to avoid being burned out? Because during the day you work as this analytical person, but again, you have this other business running beyond your 9 to 5. Like, what helped you just keep your balance or stay consistent over the last 5 years?
Consistency is the key, because I wasn't always consistent over these last 5 years. I've only been consistent maybe along the last year, and the growth that maybe I don't see, but I know the people I'm working with, they're like, do you realize how much you've done in the last year compared to where you were? Like, so someone who can see your growth and like makes you want to continue, makes you want to, balance is a loaded word in my vocabulary, because I don't think anyone ever has balance. I think if we did, we'd be very different as a society. We'd be very different as this. It's just a matter of what do you have capacity for in that day. Some days I come home from my job and I'm like, my brain is done. Like, there is nothing. I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm going to watch Netflix. But then on certain days of the week, I have scheduled, there's once a week I meet with my business coach in our group, and there's other women in there who are also building their businesses. So that ability to talk it out with someone else and like watch growth and be like, oh, that's really great. I'm going to take that idea and like apply it for me. All of the people that like I with like in working, having something that's fun, like book club with my friends. Even we're addressing topics that are hard to address, like it's in a different way. So I think that's just keeping constant curiosity and out in the world and attempting things. And if it fails, if it is a success, great. If it fails but creates success in a different way, you have to be open to being like, well, I didn't do what I wanted to do here, but look at what it did do for me here. So just kind of perspective, I guess, is helps keep me from burnout. Not that I don't get burned out. I definitely get burned out. Like, it's going to go away. Just like I say, overwhelming chaos is never going to be eradicated from your life. But if you create the tools to go through it and navigate all these things, you bounce back quicker. And that's balance, is to be able to bounce back quicker than stay in the rut that I used to be in all the time.
Do you feel now that you are content, or do you feel there's still that you want to pursue?
Yeah, I think I'm always going to be a work in progress. I think filled is the journey. So I think the fact that I am like stepping out of comfort zones is like, I always tell like my coach, Leticia, which she works in the Bahamas, so it's always virtual. I've never met her in real life. So it's those where you follow somebody, you're like vibe that I need. And I tell her, I'm like, you're the bird pushing the baby bird out of the nest. I was like, stop pushing me out of the nest. Like, LinkedIn had my thing. I like writing long form articles and everything. And it's built for short. And she's always like, you can do a story. That's what she's having me work on now. And I'm like, she's like, it's only up for 24 hours. You'll be fine. It goes away after 24 hours. Right. And I'm like, okay. She's like, practice. So it's just, I guess, the constant curiosity to be like, you can do it. Like, don't cut yourself off before you try it. Maybe you don't like it and it's like, all right, my thing. But for me, it's connections, and that my Instagram handle is create, cultivate, connect. It's the 3 C's I try to live by.
Oh, wow.
Create environments, create spaces that, for you, cultivate those things, whether it's a relationship, whether it's an idea, any of that. And then the connection part of it is kind of was cut off in COVID. It was missing connection. And so I was seeking connection, and I think we all do. And I think when you find where you connect, it changes everything, where even when you are overwhelmed, even when you are burnt out, like you're the next day going to come back to it and be like, all right, I'm going to do this again.
I like the 3 C's. You said create, cultivate, connect. I think that's I'm going to take that. I'm going to steal it from you
all right.
as my personal thing to keep me going. Now let's move to why 9-to-5s are not always enough, because it's not for everyone. Obviously, not everyone can be an entrepreneur.
No,
It's enough.
it's not enough. And I think
Okay.
a lot, privileged to say that I'm able to do things outside of my 9 to 5. A lot of people can't. It's survival for a lot of people. It was survival for me. It wasn't necessarily always about yes, I did need the money to supplement and pay rent and things like that. But if I filled my time, I was distracted from thinking about the things that weren't fulfilling me and that I had to do in order to get through. So I think 9 to 5 sometimes are a necessity. And they're fulfilling to people. I think it depends on the person. Some people love what they do and have, hit perfect storm of things. But most of us, I think, it's a means to an end, because you can't exist without being able to pay your rent, have groceries, have health insurance if you're lucky enough to be able to. So I don't think it's enough, but I don't think you have to be an entrepreneur to be fulfilled. It can be like you join a rec league because you like softball. I think part of it is the connection, being around other people who have similar interests, similar values, similar passing of time. Even if it's an hour a day, that's sometimes enough to get you to be able to move through. So I don't think a 9 to 5 is necessarily enough, but I don't think you need to be an entrepreneur and create a business to feel fulfilled. I think there's other ways you can do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. So was there a moment where you felt disconnected from your career or from your creative side?
Yeah, that's what kind of jumpstarts some of the things I chose to do and some of the things I chose not to do, something that made me afraid to reach back out and to do them. So because then you get to a point, I think you're like, who am I? I've done this in so long, I don't even know if that's me anymore. What it mean to do? Do I want to just create to sell? That was fulfilling either. So do I have to try something else? And then you look around and you do the compare and contrast, and the imposter syndrome sets in, and you're like, I don't know that I don't think my stuff is good enough, or someone's already in that market. And I think there's room for everybody, because as one of the best pieces of advice that I got from taking the course that I did was not everyone is your audience, and not everyone is going to be your client.
I like that.
Focus on who is, because that's where you're going to get the return on your investment.
Wow. So from the way you say it, obviously you're not really looking at scaling that business, going big and maybe hiring people to work on the business. Do yourself scaling, and with AI helping a lot in the creative space, I guess my question is, do you leverage AI to make things easier for you at your business?
I think it's such a complex thing right now. And in the creative world, there's people on two sides of the aisle.
Right.
And then there's I feel like I'm the middle ground. You want to leverage somebody else's work and take it as your own. That's no in creative business. Right. But also, has ChatGPT or Claude or any of those been an aid to help me organize my thoughts and get myself together? Yes, it has. It's a matter of how you use it. I'm using it as a tool. It's not writing all my articles. It's not doing all that. Does it help me organize my thoughts because I'm very wordy. I'd a page article, and they're like, Chris, you can say it in 3 pages. So it helps edit myself down, because I can't hire an editor. I can't hire, I scale. If I got to a point where I thought yes, but I'd still want it to be small. I don't want it to get away from me, because part of it is the connection. That's part of the thing of writing these articles and talking to people about the subject matter, or a workshop on it. It's to change people's lives. I don't want it to just be a tool for me to make money. So there's got to be, myself blowing up, and never know. Am I open to the opportunity? We'll see what happens when it comes. That's a choice at that time.
Yeah, I'm related to talking about chat GPT just to organize my thoughts. Sometimes I don't really use what it has, but it kind of organize my thoughts, what I want to write, because I like writing. and kind of really helps me. So I think it depends on using it.
Right. I think whether you use AI or not, it's going to come down to the human connection. People know when they're being lied to. People know, for the most part, when they're being lied to or when they're being given a fake version of you. So, and those aren't the people I want to work with who are okay with that.
Right.
So I think it's just like they're going to recognize whether I'm truthful, whether I'm honest, whether I'm doing things in integrity or not. So, and they can, then those are my people. And if they're offended by doing that, then they're not my people. So.
Wow. Interesting.
So I wanted to ask you, you might have already touched on a little bit, but have you ever had self-doubts where you felt
All the time.
and how do you overcome self-doubts? So, I do and I'm sure people can relate to this where, these self-doubts and, becomes very challenging. So if you had that moment, how did you overcome and what would you suggest to our audience?
I think it's multi-level. I think there's internally yourself, you have to know who you are, where you stand on things, knowing that not everybody's going to like what you say or do, and be okay with it because you're in your integrity and you hold yourself accountable to how you want to live your life, then that translates. So if you're I always say, I think maybe alignment was what we were talking about before, is when you're not in alignment with something, it a lot of self-doubt. It causes a lot of tension. It causes a lot of frustration, and it causes you to make choices that maybe you wouldn't, because I think part of it is done the things that were expected of you because that was your role. I think we've all had that, whether it's in your family or in your workplace, that's your role. And we expect you to be in that role. And when you step out of that role, people don't know what to do. But if you're comfortable being able to step out into yourself, you'll be able to kind of self-doubt and be what's the worst that could happen? Cases is it you have to maybe tread a little carefully because you're is this going to cost me my job? Time for me to find something else that is more in alignment, because I'm not doing what I can do to the capabilities that I can do it if you're constantly fighting that battle inside of yourself.
Right.
And support network. I have friends who are Chris, what are you doing? That's I loved what you did. Stop yourself. Or having that coach or mentor or who's just try it. What's the worst that can happen? What you fail at it, then you'll learn a lesson, and then you take that and move on from that.
You mentioned alignment. So you feel you're more aligned with your creative side of things?
I definitely do. I'm more aligned with my creative self, but because I'm more aligned with my creative self, I can do the job as a business analyst in a way that doesn't make me feel, for lack of a better term, icky about myself.
Right. Do you think that if your business you started making millions and millions and millions of dollars, would you drop being an analyst to take this job that obviously pays you a lot more money and it demands a lot of your time?
I can't lie. Yes, I would.
I like that. I think that's very
the same.
honest.
Yeah.
I would absolutely do the same. Absolutely. I know we like, 5. It's very stable. We like the health insurance that our jobs give us. We like the fact that we can say we have those jobs and those promotions and things like that. But again, I also feel if we focus on the business side as well, especially if that's where you see yourself, and it gives money and the money is really good, I think so many people will leave their jobs.
But do you think that, you have your own, you're working on, side or, right? And, do you think, your 9 to 5 gets compromised? It's compromised because you're not as passionate about your job? You're more of, your own passion or business, right?
I can only speak personally to that. And because I feel the need to do a good job no matter what job I'm doing.
Right.
It's not going to affect me in there. Am I mad that I have to go to my 9 to 5 instead of, home writing articles or creating art? Absolutely. That was work gets in the way of living my best life. But back to if I was, other load and was like able to make money and sustain life by doing that. Would I leave my job? Absolutely. Because what I have envisioned for how my business is run is kind of a little bit by doing the jobs that I've done along the way. You pick up things that help you be better at running your business. You see things that you're like, if I was running this business, I would not be doing it that way. That's not the road I would go down and how I would be doing it. It shows you what you wouldn't do in your business as much as it shows you how it can help you in your business by having all these different experiences. So, and if I had all of that, I'm like living the high life. Like, because I was making millions on my business, I was like, oh my God, I'd be able to be a philanthropist. I'd be able to have a foundation. I'd be able to do all these things that mean more to me than just the money.
Correct. What could be some of the reasons that hold you back from putting the work that's needed to scale to that point where you start making millions and millions of dollars, where you reach the point where, you know, I love the 9 to 5, but I'm now ready to take a different path. I think for so many of us who hold 9 to 5 jobs, that's a question, that's a fear that prevents us from saying, you know, I put in the effort necessary in some other path. But I know, from my experience, if I knew that I'll be successful in this business, I'll leave it. But what actually stops so many of us is fear. So what be other reasons that you think prevents people, not just you, from putting the work that's needed to scale to that level where that business becomes your biggest focus?
I do think it comes down to fear, but I think this is going to be a little different because I always say I'm not afraid of failing. I fail every single day in my job. I fail every single day in life. And I'm like, that's how I learn.
Yep.
I more of a fear of success. Like when it's successful.
Wow.
Really?
And you have to
Fear of success.
You have to
I have
make-
never heard that.
Yeah. I would never even think
No,
that
it's a
somebody
fear-
would be
afraid of success.
Yeah.
Because when you hit that success, there's expectations. Can you maintain it? What does that mean? Can you stay in alignment? Are you going to be, you know, going to change in a way that's some way that you want to do? Are you going to be able to, now I have to hire a team. I'm like, you know, being set up in the beginning, I'm like, well, I don't do a lot of things because of my fear of tech. And I'm like, but like, these are all of these, there's so much more that has to be on the plate. And if you want to do it, again, successfully in integrity and keep and maintain what you've built at a small scale to sit at a bigger level is more pressure. And it's one of those where like, could I do it? I feel like absolutely could I do it? But it's more fear in me that like something will viral. Like I understand that viral and become successful. Absolutely.
Wow. So Chris, you're opening my arm to something that I've really never thought about, like the fear of success, the fear of even going viral. I don't know how to put it, but do you girls see us
crave for these kind of things? So I'm kind of shocked hearing
Yeah. As she says it, I'm like, it's true. Maybe we're afraid of success. Like, especially some of us who hold the 9 to 5s, but we also, some part of us wants to start a business. But I don't know if we are putting the work that's necessary to scale those businesses. Do you girls think we need mentors? And if we do, where do we go? Mentorship.
I wouldn't be even close to where I am without having reached out to a business coach or staying inside, you know, they offered, like some people were given an opportunity to go into like private after the fact, you know, that kind of, and I'm still in it. And sometimes I debate, is it still like, am I using it to its full capacity? But it's that connection part. I think you need someone to be able to tell you be afraid of that. Like, what's the worst that can happen? If it fails, like, you're going to, you know, for people, like, if you're doing it in integrity, then you're never going to fail because you're always going to learn something. So without a mentor, like I said, without the mama bird pushing the baby bird out of the nest, would I be doing half the things I'm doing? Absolutely not. Like, I found an excuse to not do it because I'm comfortable. I have a job that I'm comfortable enough. I have what I need to survive. I have what I need to live. I'm happy in, you know, work in other areas that like allow me to do things. So without someone pushing you, but also without having that support to say, hey, it's okay. Like, take a step back, breathe a little, like, Pivoting, it always makes that Friends episode where they're moving the couch. And I'm like, we've had to pivot so much in like the decade as a society, as they like you have to know where you're solid and be okay with that. And then, but have that reinforcement behind you to say, hey, I have a resource for you. I can connect you to this person. Have you ever tried to do this? Like, you forward as much as it calms you down.
Wow. Hold on a
Yeah,
sec.
no, I
Hold on,
think, like,
before you say
having-
anything, I have to call. She's making noise.
Right.
Shabana.
That's so. I lost my thought, but I was like we're talking about mentorship, and I think like I really feel like everyone should have multiple mentors. I since I was in college, and he's really kind of into there's like self that I always had, and he actually helped me to and person I am today. And I think like I give him like credit for like 80% of most of his work, to do something where I doubted myself. And I feel like everybody should have it. Do you have a mentor? I know you touched on, having to.
I like reading people's books.
Okay.
So to me, I mean, the mentorship thing, maybe I should get a physical human mentor. Are there people whose lives have influenced me in one way or another? I think I need a physical mentor. But my way of mentoring me is
Reading books.
when I read books, usually some books like make me want to get out of my comfort zone and do things. So I feel like that's my way.
Books?
Self-development books. And yeah.
So, or like both of you guys, like, do you guys think like, so you talk about a lot about like having the connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think where less and less people are interacting with, right? So do you think like at one point you that AI will replace a mentorship and people can start, AI to sort of like motivation?
And I believe it can go that route. It's up to us as a society to limit its ability to do that. So I think engaging others is part of like, if you're someone who likes connection, look around and say, hey, connect with someone. Let me reach out. I think you can connect via the internet. I think the problem is we can't be in echo chambers that only repeat what we already think we know. And that's part of the problem. I think we have to we have to keep people curious. If people are curious, they're going to ask questions about what is AI doing for this. They're going to ask questions about different things. So you're not going to just have the ingrained things we're working on getting rid of right now. So I think it can be good and it can be bad. And I think it's all humans who are going to determine that.
Right.
So.
I always still chose human connection over
Absolutely.
AI.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to benefit us. I like that human connection, at least for our generation. I don't know about the generation after us, how they feel, because what I have observed, like the new generation is interacting less and less with, human less and less. So I don't know, how I would feel about the human connection, where I feel like I certainly want to have that human connection.
Yeah, I still have to live in the world.
Right.
And if
The
I'm going to put people on a
emotional
bad
feelings
path,
and
teaching people to interact. And I think that, for certain things, because I'm like, 5-year-olds who have to show me how to turn on the TV because there's 7 remotes. And I'm like, kind of thing. Or, you have to think of things as tools and not replacing what is human connection.
Right. I think that's a great way to look at it.
So I know like we touched on, your personal journey and a lot of the stuff that you're doing with business and your 9-to-5 job. If is a new business, having a 9-to-5 job, and also maybe they have already started a job, what suggestion, advice you have for them?
Give a lot of grace, because it's a lot more work than you think it's going to be. Reach out for help. Don't try and do it on your own and sit in the corner crying for way too long, thinking like you should be able to do this because you have X degree, you've had this experience, you have this background. Sometimes you just need a little bit of a different perspective. So, and to ask questions, be creative. Like I said, I always say everyone is creative. I don't think creativity is locked into art. So if you think of yourself as creative, you're always going to figure a way out of doing something or figure out a way to do something. But don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to fail. Try not to be afraid of success.
And ask that one.
Yeah.
And Chris, now on to our final questions, which we like to ask everyone. What is one thing you would like to keep or one thing you would like to change about your life?
Everything led me to where I am today. But what I would say is like, don't so long to attempt things or to things. Like, take the chance and try it. And I would say like, you can go backwards, but you can always go forward. So, but don't wait as long. I a long time before I knew who I was and what I wanted, and let other people's ideas of who I was shape what I did. And then when you finally hit a point, and for me, it was in my like mid, which is late. So kudos to all the people today who know who they are or are figuring it out a lot faster. I've done so many different things. If I'd started just and trusted myself earlier to be like, that feels a little off, trust yourself and the path that will help you move in the right direction.
Wow. And don't be afraid to start.
Don't be afraid to start.
Regardless of the age.
Yeah.
And be afraid to be successful.
And don't be afraid to be successful. I'm still working on that one.
Me too. We should all be working on that one.
Yeah.
We should never be afraid of success. If one thing I'm taking from this conversation is that ask questions. Don't be afraid of success and even failure, right?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of failure and face your fears.
Yep. If you ask questions and someone's not willing to help you or is not willing to give you advice or experience or insight, they're not your people.
I heard something from someone's, I don't know if it was TikTok or YouTube, but someone said, you're not asking the wrong questions. You're asking the wrong people.
It was a really fascinating to know your story and how you have built yourself. Your time. Thank you. Hopefully we'll have you next time for another topic because it seems like you have a lot going on.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate you having the chat with me. Thank you both.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to our conversation today. If this conversation resonates with you and you feel like this is something can help you lead a successful life, please like, subscribe, follow, and leave us a comment. We love hearing from you, and we are very interested in your feedback.
Reflect. Thanks for watching 518 a reset. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a conversation. Until next time. Pause.